And I felt that I'd sort of forgotten what's really important in life. I'd gone to London. He used to call me the media mogul. I felt like I'd sold out a bit. I made up for it straight away.
Why were you chosen to be the Senior Vice President, Head of Paramount Plus in the UK and Ireland? Why you?
Within weeks of being in the building, I was asked, we're going to launch this thing. Can you do it?
Paramount Plus?
Yeah. And I was like, well, I've been known to run down a dual carriageway with my shoes in my hand trying to get back for parents' evening for my daughter who was 5, and for them to just say to me, oh, she's really lovely, and you're like, oh my God.
What are your tips in smooth and happy parenting from a parent who can be quite busy at times?
I read this amazing quote that said, you'll always remember the sports day you missed, but never the meeting that you missed it for. He said to me, I would take a working mum over someone who hasn't got kids any day. The way that you come into work and get on with it, get in, do your job, leave, because that's what you need to do.
Greetings, I'm Ashley Samuels Mackenzie.
And I'm Charles Parkinson.
And welcome to How I Became,
where we unveil the unscripted journeys of inspirational figures.
If you enjoy the show, could you do one thing? Subscribe. Wherever you are, just click the subscribe or follow button. That simple act can help us grow the podcast in a big way, and we need your support to do it. And if you really want to help play a part in our growth, rate us on Spotify or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It would mean the world. Thank you. This episode is brought to you by Uber, shaping the future for consumers as they go anywhere and get anything. Advertising on Uber connects brands with hundreds of millions of people using Uber around the world in the moments that move them most. To learn more about what we can do for your brand, visit uber.com/advertising.
Hi, I'm Anna Priest, and this is how I became Senior Vice President and Head of Paramount Plus UK and Ireland.
Moving from London to Blackpool to call a new place home, she was told it might be best she drops her accent and change up her southern tone. When it comes to nature versus nurture, she's interested to take a further look, distilling her life experiences leading to authoring an upcoming book. Transformation and change, her signature traits. And she found a way to Paramount and took the lead to get them into tip-top shape. So now we'll delve into her life and gain some gems of wisdom at the very least. Introducing the Senior Vice President and Head of Paramount Plus UK and Ireland, Anna Priest.
I love that. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
That's brilliant.
There you go. Your life in a poem.
I think I might frame that if you can send it to me.
Of course.
Totally. So that is your story in a poem. Now we're going to share the story of how you became, or how you were chosen. Why were you chosen to be the Senior Vice President, Head of Paramount Plus in the UK and Ireland, to launch this TV subscription service? Is that how you describe it? In the UK, for one of the biggest entertainment companies on the planet. Why you is the question. But don't answer that yet, otherwise we don't have a podcast.
Okay, sorry, that's just the answer and then that's gone. Right? Okay, we start from the very beginning.
We go back, and also I should say to people that it's reported to have 71.2 million global subscribers, Paramount Plus.
Globally.
That's
Pretty impressive.
That's like as much as the United Kingdom, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's a fantastic subscription video on demand service. Do you
I love Yellowstone. I love Yellowstone. People in the UK need to watch Yellowstone.
It's is amazing. A phenomenal series. I think somebody described it as Dallas meets Succession, and it just is exactly that. It's phenomenal. And we have spin-off series, 1883, 1923. There's more to come.
Yes.
It's all coming.
Do you know what the problem is? My cousin, she loves horses. And I said, you've got to watch Yellowstone because it's full of horses and like really cinematic stuff, not shot on the green screen. It's in Yellowstone. It looks amazing. The only issue is at the very start, a poor horse has a bad experience. And so she was like, oh my God, why have you recommended this? And I said, that's the only time in the whole 5 seasons that happens. get past that.
And Kevin put it out of his misery. You know, it wasn't.
He did the right thing.
Yeah, he did the right thing.
Well, Kevin Costner comes back into your story later in as we get to the Paramount era. But yeah, that's what we're going to find out today is how does someone get in that position to launch this huge subscription service in the UK? So to do that, let's go back to where it all began. Set the scene for your life, where it all began, and tell us, you said you developed a very high EQ as a young person. Why was that?
I developed a high EQ because my parents got divorced. And as you are balancing two different styles of people and versions of reality, you are very much trying to understand different people's point of view, understand that perception isn't always reality, and make sure that both of them were happy and, we could all work out what the new normal was going to be like. So I very much tried to work out the way to keep them both happy and centered. This sounds terrible, doesn't it? Because it's back to front. It should have been the other way around. I'm sure it was. I was 6 when my parents got divorced.
So you remember trying to be this sort of play this role as 6 years old?
I remember trying to help navigate a proper, happy, joyous future. Yeah.
How does a 6-year-old do that?
By diffusing difficult situations, by making sure that we're all right and we can exist in a new and different way. And I somehow have a gift of being able to put a smile on people's faces, even in the most difficult times. So I lent into that from an early age, and I've continued it throughout, my career.
Any advice for parents going through a divorce on how, you've been the child of a divorce, what's best for the child having gone through it yourself?
I guess it's different for everybody, right? And you don't know why different people get divorced. But I mean, I would say as much as possible, try to keep civil and kind to each other, and make it as easy for the kids to navigate through the different households and stuff that comes up. But I recognise it's really, really hard, and emotions run really high, and what you expected was your future isn't your future with somebody anymore, and you've got kids that you want to protect and nurture throughout it. So I don't think that there's a right way, but I think that what's really important is honesty and integrity all the way through, and what will be will be. I wouldn't say that people should stay together for the sake of their kids. I think that's not the right thing. My parents are not right for each other. They shouldn't have been married, and I can see that massively now. My kids say, "What? Granddad Whiskers was married to Gran?" When my son was little, he more believed that my sister could have been married to my dad rather than my mum. So they weren't right for each other, and it wouldn't have been a conducive family environment. So it was right that it happened, and we just navigated the way through.
And how's your relationship with both of them now? Really
good now. Really, really good. They're not that keen on each other. Still. But really, really good. I have a really close relationship with both of them, and they've been enormously supportive of me, and they both believe that I can do anything, and I've always believed that, and I think that has really spurred me on. My mum is a counsellor. She gave up work a year ago at the age of 80.
Wow.
And she is now doing an MA in creative writing because she can't stand to do nothing, which is pretty cool. And my dad has always been a businessman, and a very successful businessman, and you put together a counsellor and a business person, I think you get an empathetic business leader, and I've learned from both of them. So,
what business was he in?
He was in marketing actually as well, which is he was marketing manager for Heinz, And then he went on to run his own marketing agency, and did very well for himself.
And your mum is the future writer of a Paramount series, maybe?
Well, I don't know about that. Some of it's a bit gruesome. She gave me a sneak peek of something at the weekend. I don't think that it was, as mainstream and populist as Paramount is. And I don't believe in nepotism. So no, she's not going to be on Paramount Plus anytime soon. But she is a gifted writer and a fearsome woman. Okay. I'm very proud of her.
Amazing. Okay. And so where are we? We talked about Yellowstone. That's not where you grew up. Where did you grow up? Where was all this happening?
Well, when my parents were together, we lived in London. And so...
Whereabouts?
I was born in Wimbledon. Yeah. And then we lived in Putney for a while. And then we moved to Ashford in Middlesex. Okay. And until the age of about 7, I think we lived here. And then my mum met somebody else and remarried, and he worked in Blackpool. So we moved from, I went to Lady Eleanor Hollis, which is this just amazing, leafy, beautiful school in Hampton. And then suddenly we were moving to Lytham St Anne's, which is just outside of Blackpool. And my sister said, lose the accent fast. I had a really, really posh accent, and we were about to be thrown into quite the northern place. Proper northerners. Yeah. And that was the best advice, I think. It took some time to practice my accent, but she said you will get completely annihilated if you do not lose the accent. Okay.
So you work through that, you get acclimatized into the north, and you go to university in the north.
I have to say, yeah, my mum's a Geordie and my dad's from Manchester, right? It's not that there's no northern roots there. I've got huge northern roots, and I'm really, really proud to be a northerner. So if people ask me where I'm from, I say I'm from the north. I am a northerner. I love. I think it has completely shaped me going to live up there. I loved it. I had a great time. I feel that there's a warmth and a generosity of spirit and an honesty to northerners and I was embraced despite my probably very bad accent. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I've got tons of friends up north, and yes, I went to a northern university. So I went to school in Lytham St Anne's. I then went to sixth form in Blackburn, and then I went to university in Leeds. So it was all about the north for me. And I tell you what, if the media industry had been as prolific up north as it is now, I'd probably still be there.
Wow. So you do go to Leeds University. You're 19. You're at that stage in your life where anything is possible. The whole world is ahead of you. You're going through your degree, and then something difficult happens again in family life. Yeah. Do you remember how you found out what happened?
My mum and my stepdad got divorced, and that was really sad. And I think that because I actually think that my mum and my stepdad were right for each other, but I think that life just got in the way. He got made redundant, and I think now looking back on it, my mum was probably going through the menopause, but no one really talked about things like that at the time, and they just misfired and disconnected, and then I can see that now. I mean, obviously at the time I was just very, very angry and sad, and my stepdad had an affair, and so left, and he went to live in Russia, and
wow. That is quite a change.
And it's just this kind of, it blows up your world in a way that, when my mum and dad got divorced, I was my dad's daughter. So he's not going to be going anywhere. He's always going to be my dad. But when my stepdad left, although I tried to hang on for as long as I possibly could, he's not in my life really anymore. And that is really sad.
When you say you tried to hang on, what do you mean?
I tried to see him whenever I could. I tried to do what I guess I did when I was 6 years old, which is how do I make this all right? And how do I, still see him. And he was on a board of a big company here, so he used to come back for board meetings. So I used to meet him in Heathrow Airport just for a cup of coffee whenever he came back. Wow. To just try and keep that relationship. But I guess he then moved on, had a different family, and it was when who I would have called my auntie, so his brother's wife, introduced me at a wedding as Stuart's second wife's daughter. I think I kind of realised that I wasn't as important to him and his family as he had been to me. So that was pretty tough. How
do you feel about it now?
I feel really sad that he's not really in my life. I have reached out to him recently, and we've connected over email, and but I don't feel that he particularly wants me in his life. Not that he's saying he doesn't, but just it's not.
You get a feel for it.
And that it's not going to be a bed of roses. I also think I would upset my dad if I did that. My kids don't know him. They've never met him. I think you have to turn your face to the joy in life. And if that's not going to be forthcoming, don't continually bash your head against a brick wall, just move forward. But what I was very angry with him when he did it. I lost my sort of faith in mankind for quite a long time. University wasn't as joyous as it should have been. But now that I'm older, now that I have children, now that I can see how life can get quite hard, I completely and utterly forgive him, and I'm hugely grateful for the life that he gave us for as long as he could.
What would be your tips to someone who's had to experience something like that and go through the feelings that you had to go through?
I think you just have to feel what you feel. I think that I probably bottled it all up because my mum was really sad, so I didn't sort of really necessarily go to my mum with how I felt because I didn't put as much importance on how I felt versus how she felt. I think, you should open up and talk to people about it. My mum got me a counsellor, which I found massively unpleasant when I was 19 years old. And I wasn't very forthcoming. I didn't, I just thought, what do you know? And I was quite 19 about it. And, now thinking back on it, it's probably better to explain how you feel and work those things through. And I think I've probably spent a lot of my life just shoving things down, and eventually they will resurface. So it's better to try and deal with them while you can. But again, I was navigating university. I was navigating, my own problems with the opposite sex. So I would say you work through it at your own pace. There's no manual that's going to tell you how to come out the other side unscathed. No one comes out unscathed.
No,
but worse things have happened to people. And yeah, like I say, find the joy, because if you spend your time thinking it's miserable and woe is me, then you're wasting a lot of time. And find your friends that you can talk to about it. And
How did it make you feel about men at that time? What impact did it have then on your love life moving forward? Did you? I
did. Yeah. I mean, I didn't trust people as much as I used to. I think I used to be a bit of a kind of skip through life thinking everyone's wonderful and it's all going to be okay. And I guess it did make me question the type of man that I would want to marry. My stepdad was, very good looking, charismatic, 6'4", turned heads. He also had quite a big ego, that went with that. And I look at the people that my mum's known through her life, and I think that I look at the men that I've known through my life, and one of the most important sort of male role models to me was my granddad. And funnily enough, it sounds really weird, but I think my husband really reminds me of my granddad. Very dependable, like there's absolutely no way that my husband would ever run off with somebody else. And that was the most important thing to me. That was the thing that was like, that couldn't happen to me, because if that did happen to me, I think I would have to go and lie in a darkened room for a very long time.
What were the qualities he showed to let you
He's
know
kind. He's kind. He's funny. He wants to spend time with me, and we share a lot of the same values. We make each other laugh every day, and he will show up for me no matter what, and vice versa. And we've got kids that are full of sunshine too. You know, it's like we look for what will make you smile in life. And he makes me laugh every day, and I definitely make him laugh, but I don't know necessarily in a good way all the time. But we don't take life too seriously, and we're not all about ourselves. And we haven't got big egos. And, you know, if it all changed tomorrow, my husband would be more than happy to, you know, downgrade, live somewhere else, do something else. We'd just figure it out.
Yeah. Well, if you could go back in time and speak to yourself as a 19, 20-year-old woman about relationship, how to find the right person, or just relationship advice, what would you say?
I wouldn't change any of my past. I think that, you know, go for it. Go and meet a few people that are going to, you know, trip you up along the way, because you'll learn that they're not the people that you want to be with forever. Or you know, I've had lots of different boyfriends in my past before I met my husband, and each of them has benefited me in some way. I've learned a lot, and some of them are still my friends. And you know, it's not bad to go into relationships and for them to break up, is it? It's life lessons.
Life.
Yeah, and it's sometimes it'll be, if I had met my husband 10 years before, there is absolutely no way we would have been together.
Wow.
He's hugely into dance music. I was into 80s. He was a massive party animal, and I would have found it all a bit, you know, naff. But now, quite grateful for all of the festival passes that I get and the places
Nice.
I go.
Yeah, that's a perk and a half.
Are you going to Glastonbury this year? Is that one of them?
I'm not, but I have taken my kids to Glastonbury twice,
cool.
and I have been to Glastonbury a few times. My husband and I met at Radio 1, and he was head of dance music. So, yeah, our happy place is in a festival field with the kids.
So cool.
Speaking of Radio 1, tell us about how you got your first job opportunity at the BBC.
Well, I wanted to be a children's TV presenter, and I'd done loads of videos of me presenting. I'd been on all sorts of courses and all the rest of it. I was sending them to different broadcasters, but I really, really loved the BBC, so I was kind of hell-bent on working at the BBC. And I just applied for everything and anything that was out there, and I applied for a job as a researcher. And I got an interview and I got it. And for 6 months, I was the person that basically looked up in a book, a Barb book, what a certain show had done the day before. So they got posted to us. Yeah. We opened these books. We could see who got what. And then you would tell the commissioners and the controllers how well their show had done. Right. The night before. Wow. I don't know whether they were overnights. They were probably weekly, so you couldn't actually, they didn't know the next day how well something had done. They had to wait a week, and you went through all of, and then it was all kind of Excel spreadsheets and figuring out why something had done well, what the demographics of the people who had watched a specific show were, and giving program makers intel and also marketing people intel into who their audience was and why.
Brilliant. So real life data before, you know, the eve of Google analytics.
Absolutely. It was quite rudimental data, but it was still, that was what we had, and that's what we used. And it was a really good foundation actually for marketing, although I didn't know that that's what I wanted to do at the time. I just wanted to get into the BBC and be recognised. You know, I thought if I walked past the Blue Peter Garden enough, somebody would say, gosh, I think you should be a children's TV presenter. I hung on to that for quite some time.
Tell us how you say, and here's one I made earlier, and that'd be your audition, surely.
Yeah, I don't know why it was kids' TV that I particularly wanted to be in, but yeah. Anyway, that ship sailed now, I think.
And then from here, you moved into the marketing.
I moved to media planning first,
Okay.
and actually I was looking in the attic as I was coming to here for things to remind me of the sort of how I became, and I found a diary from 1999.
Look at that.
BBC diary, so I would have been really happy with that merch.
Just describe it for anyone just listening, not watching.
So it's a blue. What size would you say that is?
Ooh, like a thin A4. Half an A4?
Half an A5.
Half an
A5,
A5,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
sorry,
sort of
A4.
pocketish
Yeah.
diary. It's got the BBC blocks on the front of it, and it says 1999.
99.
And on the very first page, before you even get to anything, it says cancel gym membership first of the month. So
that was probably done in about February, March. The New Year's resolution was over.
Yeah.
You weren't using it.
But on the 10th of January 1999, I've written "What's media planning?" in my diary, and as I went through, on the 24th of April, so what's that? January, February, March, April. 3 months later,
Yeah.
start in media planning.
Oh.
So I was like, what? I was obviously
Really?
going for a job interview for something that I hadn't got a clue what it was. Did my research and obviously came out on top, and started in April 1999 as a media planner.
There you go.
But then as I went through the diary later on, I found in September I've written, hand in my notice over the phone.
That was a short-lived stint.
Because I really loved media planning. I worked there for 6 months. Obviously, that was my ability to stay somewhere for 6 months, because I'd done 6 months in research as well. But no, I was emigrating to Fort Lauderdale to go and live with my boyfriend, who was a yacht captain. And I thought that maybe I could take all of the, obvious riches that I'd learned from media planning over 6 months.
6 months. Yeah.
and go and work for an American TV company. I didn't. I came back about 6 months later.
Wow.
But funnily enough, I work for an American company now, don't I? So
Yeah.
potentially my wish finally came true.
Full circle. So you come back and work at the BBC?
So I came back, and my boss in media planning actually said to me, "You'll be back in 3 months," I think he said. So, which I thought was quite rude at the time, because I was going to get married. And I was back in about 4, I think. And I went back to them and I said, is there any way I could have my job back? And they were absolutely amazing. And I said, I'm going to really struggle to sit in the same seat and do the same thing. Can I do anything else? Mm-hmm. And they were setting up media planning in the radio stations. It hadn't happened before. The way that they played all of the trails in radio stations was that they just rotated them throughout the day. So they're not thinking about who's watching, who's listening to what, and how you move people through. So they said you could go and work for one of the radio stations. Radio 1 was very hotly contested. And I think that they probably thought, with my musical taste, that I would be better suited for Radio 2. But I was adamant that I wanted to be cool and go to Radio 1. Right. And they did let me. I mean, they didn't just let me. I obviously went through an interview process and all the rest of it. But then I went to Radio 1 and I set up media planning, and I worked there for a good 3 years, I think. I met my husband there. But I also realised that I wanted to be in marketing when I was in media planning at Radio 1. And so I asked the BBC if they would pay for me to do my MA in marketing, which they did, unbelievably.
Cool.
They said as long as I stayed another year when I'd finished, so that meant that they'd got me for another 3 years. And as long as I passed, and if I left or if I failed, I had to pay it back. So
no pressure.
Quite incentive. I don't think I had the money to pay it back. So yeah, I worked hard. I really enjoyed it. And at the beginning of the whole process, I didn't have a boyfriend, so it was all, relatively easy to spend every weekend in the British Library. But I then met Matt.
Do you remember the first day you met?
I met him at Radio 1, yes. Do I remember the first day? I think I thought he was quite rude. And that's right, he was going to the Miami Winter Music Conference. And I said, I used to live in Miami. And he didn't seem particularly interested. So I thought he was quite rude.
That's quite a good conversation.
But maybe he was, blushing to the roots of his hair because he knew I was going to be his future wife. Who knows?
There
Who knows?
There you go.
Yes. And how did that develop, that relationship?
He asked me out a few times. I said no because I was very conscientious and I thought that it might get in the way of me and my meteoric rise in the BBC.
Very
and
professional choice.
very professional. I thought it would be unprofessional to go out with him. I also didn't think it was going to work because, like I said, he was head of dance music and they all seemed a bit cool for school. And I was just thinking I would rather be at the WAG Club dancing to, to POW or whatever. And so I thought it's not going to work. But he was quite persistent. So in the end, I thought it was a bit embarrassing. So I thought I will go out with him for one night for dinner. And then he will realise that we're completely incompatible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it worked the other way around and I really liked him. And he took me to the WAG Club actually that night and he could get in without queuing.
Oh,
and I was like,
you were sold.
Wow.
That's it.
And he danced.
And he danced.
And I fell down the stairs actually and missed my footing at the top. And he was absolutely brilliant about it and has subsequently said that it was that moment that he realised that I was the person that he was going to marry. Brilliant. It was a bit of a Bridget Jones moment, I think.
That's so cool.
But he was, he was very cool.
So relationship advice, fall down some stairs, not too badly, but enough.
Don't break anything, because obviously that's a bit dramatic, but just fall down the stairs and laugh it off and stay and get back on the dance floor. And then you're obviously future wife material.
Nice.
Yes.
Sorted.
Solid
Relationship advice.
Yeah.
Done. Love that.
Next up, after you did your MA,
Mm-hmm.
you then moved into the CBeebies.
I did. So as soon as I had my MA, a job came up in children's BBC. Still, you see, I'm getting closer and closer to this children's presenter role. So a job came up to be brand manager for CBeebies, and I applied for it, and I got it, and I started in children's television. The person that I was meant to be reporting into had left. There was nobody else there, so I sort of joined as the brand manager, but there was no head of marketing yet. She eventually came. And I was given what they called in those days a top 12, which means that it was one of the 12 biggest campaigns of the year for the whole of the BBC.
Oh, wow.
And I was running it with no experience whatsoever other than an MA, which really is not helpful. It's just the piece of paper that says that you've qualified, but it's not helpful in the kind of, TV world of it all. And I was briefing in this campaign for CBeebies, and before I knew it, I was on a plane to Canada shooting this trail, and I really, really was thrown in at the deep end, but it was amazing.
What's a trail for anyone who doesn't
An
know?
advert. The BBC call them trails because they don't have any adverts on the BBC. So it's trailing the brand or the programme.
I see. Where did you go to next?
From CBeebies, I went to CBBC and was their marketing manager, and then I went to BBC Three Comedy and Entertainment as their marketing manager as well. And I was a marketing manager for quite a long time, and that was that moment. And I think lots of people get stuck in their career at a certain point. It's not always marketing manager. It could be more junior, it could be more senior. But I was there for quite a long time, and I was desperately trying to get to that next level. And then a maternity cover came up at Comic Relief as their head of marketing. And because it's a BBC charity, I could move there without breaking my pension or my years of service or anything else. And for them, it was really, really useful because I was going out and getting different experience, but that I would come back to the BBC with. I see. So I went for just over a year to Comic Relief as their head of marketing. I just had a baby. I had my first baby in 2006. And I'd come back to the BBC for maybe 3 months, and then I'd gone on this secondment to Comic Relief.
What did you learn about I think you mentioned to us that there's a lot of, you put in a lot of work while you're at Comic Relief, because what you're doing is leading to such amazing outcomes, you know?
Yeah.
Did you overwork? Did you put yourself through burnout? What's that
Yeah,
experience like?
and I am I'm very capable of doing that, working too hard and getting to that sort of sense of overwhelm, and you have to then pull it back and try and balance. So at Comic Relief I did exactly that. I mean, up until this point I had been making people watch telly, and so yes, it is really important that you watch Strictly Come Dancing, because that money can get channeled back into the BBC and it's a public service. It's not quite the same thing as saving people's lives. And like I said, I just had my son, and Comic Relief were very clever and sent me to Bangladesh almost as soon as I got there to look at the projects that we help and support. I sound like I'm still there. It was ages ago. And the difference between the life that my son has and the life of the little boy that I followed around in Bangladesh to get the kind of advert that was going to make people donate. Obviously you are looking for the most scrawling stories, but this absolutely beautiful child who walked around in his bare feet on massive rubbish dumps all day in the blistering heat to collect plastic to then sell at the end of the day, and he would make the equivalent of about 20p for 10 hours work. He had no parents, he lived in a Comic Relief project, and he was just so amazing. He didn't see any of the hardship that I saw because he doesn't understand the life that I lead, and the sort of privilege that we all have. But yes, it was very difficult to understand when to stop, because you know that the more you do, the more you can help.
What were your days like sometimes when it was at its worst?
I'd start work at 8:00, but I did have to leave early to get home to get my son from childcare. But it just consumed my thoughts all the time. There was you can't turn it off when you get home. And it did actually get to the point where I lost the skin on the inside of my hands, which was very weird. Not all of it, obviously, but
what?
I think just from stress,
Really? Wow.
from caring too much.
Goodness me. So what's left then?
You just, I just got the equivalent of sort of eczema on the insides of my hands from your body. My body physically tells me when enough's enough, when you need to pull back a bit. I used to lose my voice once a year, where you're basically going no, just calm down a bit.
Just completely run down, basically.
And I am bad for that. I know I'm bad for that. I mean, I wake up in the night, I'm thinking about work. Doesn't matter who I work for. I am constantly thinking about how I could do things differently, better. So you do have to row that back a bit. I think.
What would you say to someone who's listening to this and they're really sort of resonating with what you're saying and feeling like they're going through something similar, or they do that as well? What's your advice? If
you're that kind of person, you have to massively course correct. You have to make yourself do the things that you don't think you should be doing. So I put other people first. I feel guilty, or did feel guilty, when my kids were younger, that I worked 5 days a week. And then I would feel guilty at work that people who didn't have children could put more hours in, didn't have to leave the office exactly on time, and all the rest of it. So you've kind of got this awful situation where you think that you're not doing as well in both situations. I would say talk to your bosses about it and talk to your family about it. Figure out how you can balance the two and share the burden. When I did finally talk to one of my bosses about it, he said to me, I would take a working mum over someone who hasn't got kids any day. The way that you come into work and get on with it with no and complete efficiency. Never see you standing around chatting to people in the coffee area. You know, you just get on, get in, do your job, leave, because that's what you need to do. And then in terms of my kids, I mean, I've never sat them down and interviewed them and asked them whether me working has been difficult or problematic to them. But I don't think it has at all. I think that they both massively respect what I do. And I think that my daughter sees a role model that is a woman that can carve out a career and be financially independent. And my son sees that there should be equality in the world and that he should step up as much as any woman in a situation where you've got children or you've got a home to build, but also that equality, I properly mean it. You know, I think men should be allowed paternity. I think you shouldn't raise your eyebrows if a man wants to leave at 4:00 to go and get their children from school. It doesn't always work both ways, and I don't think that that's right. And so I have worked really hard in my career to try and pioneer that for other women and other men. I sort of high-fived one of the guys in my team that was going off on paternity leave, another guy that shared his wife's maternity leave and took 6 months himself. It's really important. If we want change, it has to happen on both sides.
Love that. Great message. You go into your next role after this at a new company.
I went back to the BBC after Comic Relief, and I made it to head of marketing. So I was head of marketing for BBC Three Comedy and Entertainment for a couple of years. Right. And I really loved that. And I sort of felt, right, I've got it. I've got out of being a marketing manager. I've made head of, I've made it. But after 2.5 years, so I guess it was, 2.5 years later, then I had another child. So I've had my daughter Olivia, and when I came back to work after that, I was like, right, I think I need to now think about what do I want to do, because I've been at the BBC for 12 years. Yes, I've had 2 children there, but am I a BBC marketeer or am I an actual marketeer? And I really worried that I didn't have the smarts to cut it outside of the BBC. And so while, I didn't want to leave, I loved it there, I took that really enormously hard decision when someone approached me from A+E Networks, which is an American company, to go and be their VP of Marcoms. So it's Vice President of Marketing, Media Planning, Creative, Social, and PR.
A lot of things.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
For 4 channel brands in sort of 90 different territories. Wow. So it was suddenly like, whoa. And I went through the process thinking, well, I don't think that I'm the right person for this job because I haven't got any commercial experience and I haven't got any international experience. But I'll go through the process. I will have these conversations with them. I've been recommended by somebody. And so they clearly want to talk to me. As I got through the process, we clearly just realized that there was a lot that I could bring to A+E Networks of all of the marketing kind of training and understanding and audience knowledge that I had and ability to build brands and all the rest of it. And they had the commercial and international experience in spades. And it was like this trade-off. It was I didn't lie. You can't lie. Your CV tells you you've been at the BBC for 12 years. Yeah. So, and it was a great process, actually, because you're not trying to pretend to be anybody that you're not. You're saying, this is what I can bring. This is what I don't have. Is the exchange 50-50 or not? And that has actually worked for me a lot throughout my career. So I joined there, thoroughly loved it, but was one of the only females on the senior management team, and really sort of started to realise that I'd been very sheltered in the BBC. It's a very equal place where there's women in senior positions everywhere, whereas I sort of joined this company and was suddenly like, wow, okay, I've actually got a voice because I'm on the senior management team, and I need to do more. I've got a responsibility to help other women, and also, fly the flag for women in senior leadership positions. And I think that's probably spurred me on at times where it has felt a bit too much. I feel like I'm actually doing womankind a service, and I should keep it up, because there seems to be a moment where a lot of women tip out of work, and that's because it just gets too hard and difficult to balance the two.
Why is it hard and difficult?
Because I certainly am not going to devolve the responsibilities that I have being a parent, but there are all sorts of things that you need to be at. There's dinners, there's foreign travel, there's, huge pitches that you're working on that you might have to work all night. And, you have to be as available as anybody else is. You can't sort of put your hand up, or I couldn't put my hand up and say, this isn't going to work for me because I need to be home by 5 o'clock. I mean, I think the world has changed quite a lot now. But, you want to bring it. You want to show people. I was hugely ambitious and I wanted to make strides forwards. But I wasn't going to give up the emotional responsibility that I have for my kids. You can't farm that out. You can obviously have wraparound school care, but I'm constantly on the hook for my family's happiness, and I'm glad I am. I don't want to devolve that responsibility.
What advice do you have then for a woman who may be in a similar position, very senior, on the board maybe, and one of the only, or if not the only woman? How do you still play that role to keep the family happy?
Well, I think there's two roles that you're playing. One is representing women and not trying to be a man in that situation. So I've always been very true to myself, and you need different voices. You don't need a woman to morph into a man to bring the same voice to the table. That's not going to work. But how do you manage the work-life balance? I would say with a constant dialogue with your partner about how you're going to make it work. Initially, I think I got it wrong. I think I just would take everything on because I wanted everything to be a certain way. And I think I would take control of everything and therefore have to be responsible for everything. My husband's a phenomenally lovely man. He will do whatever you ask him to do, but he's not going to stick his hand up and say, why don't I do all of this stuff? Or he certainly wasn't. So you have to give up some of the control. You have to recognize that your husband's going to do things differently, but if he's willing to do it, then crack on. And my kids have a really balanced relationship with both of us. And I think that you have to figure out what each other's strengths are and who's going to play to which strengths, and, make sure that you cut up your responsibilities between you. But I'm never going to give up the emotional part of it ever. And if push comes to shove, my kids come first, and they always will do, even when they've left home. That's just the way it is. So there have been times in my life that I've had to press the pause button. I've had to get off the train, but I've got off the train and sort of stood still rather than got off completely. So I've kind of kept my hand in. I moved into consultancy for a while because it all got too overwhelming. My son was doing his 11+. My mum got cancer, and it was too much. So I quit my job, and I think I had a New Year's resolution to quit my job, write a book and get a 6-pack. I actually only managed to quit my job. I wrote half the book. So I guess my advice would be it's okay to tread water for a while. Sophie Turner-Lang, who ran entertainment at Sky at the time, said that to me as I was kind of agonizing about the fact that I was about to leave this amazing job that I'd done for like 3.5-4 years, and I was the vice president of marketing and comms, and it was amazing.
And what were when you quit, did you think, I'm quitting, I'm taking some time off, and then I'll come back to the world of work when things are a bit
No,
more manageable?
I stopped doing a 5-day-a-week job that I needed to fly all over the world to do. I went into consultancy and worked 4 days a week for a British company. So I just was stopping the travel and the sort of crushing responsibility of a job at that level.
I see.
When you're a consultant, you're a person for hire, aren't you? It's like, this is the job that you need to do. Can you fix this problem? Yes, I can. And not worry about everything else that surrounds that. All of the people, all of the politics, all of the, everything else. That's not your business. You go in, there's a job to do. How do we launch Britbox in the UK? Okay, here's the strategy. Here's the audience. Here's what the logo should look like. I wasn't building teams responsible for people's careers.
Which is this treading water concept. Like, that's doing what you just said. That's treading water. You're not fully out the pool, but you're not swimming, like crazy.
Exactly. You're not crossing the Atlantic.
Yeah.
You're standing in a warm pool for a while. I was doing something that I could do easily. I guess is what I mean by treading water. Yeah. So I was, and I also was doing things on my terms. So I could take the jobs that I wanted to do. I worked 4 days a week. I worked some of it from home. I took every summer off for 4 years and spent it with the kids and absolutely loved it. I was there for my mum. And that's what made me feel okay about myself. That's not to say that that's what other people should do. That's to say that that's what I felt I needed to do at the time. And it was the right thing to do. It was a bit soul destroying because I had been doing this for so long. Yeah. But it was, I got to work on lots of different interesting projects, and I worked with some amazing people. I went to Top Gear, which I absolutely loved, for a couple of years, and worked for a brilliant guy there. So you're gaining such experience. You think that you're treading water, but actually the rich story that you tell in your next job interview when you're ready to get back on the horse, it all makes sense. Yeah. Sort of like, it's like I meant to do all of that. And of course you don't. You just work out the narrative and explain it to people in a confident manner that doesn't say I've been treading water for taking the summer off for 4 years. Nobody asked me. In the next job interview, no one says to you, how many days a week do you work? Of course they don't. No. They don't know. They just assume, or they don't care. Yeah. Because all they're looking at is who you are in front of them at that moment in time, and do you fit with what they need.
I think that is great advice. Again, like as you say, for anyone who it is right for, who is finding it a bit too much, maybe with family and this career path they're on, so that you don't have to fully go out of things, but you can scale down things a bit while you catch a breath.
Yeah,
you can always go back in.
I think that's exactly what I was doing, catching a breath, because it was a bit much for a while.
So you said to us there are some people in your life that make you make sense. Who is that for you?
I mean, lots of people are really, really important to me. But yes, it was. You asked me about a challenging time in my life, and in December 2022, one of my best friends died. He didn't quite make it to his 50th birthday, but he is one of those people that make you make sense. So I met him at junior school, but we became properly best friends when we were about 15, and it was never a romantic relationship. We just translated the world for each other from a female perspective or a male perspective.
Right.
And we were just always there for each other, and we always laughed at the world and made it make sense. I guess when he died, he took a part of me with him. It's like you want to know. You want to know who you were back then. You want to sort of still be able to access that person. And yeah, it was really, really hard. But he was a phenomenal human being. And yeah, I miss him a lot. And it's very difficult to face the joy out of something like that. You know, obviously now it's 2 years later. I am very grateful of all of the time. Some people don't have friendships like that at all. So, you know, but yeah, I miss him a lot.
What journey did he go on then?
So he had brain, lung and spine cancer. So it was very clear that he had terminal cancer from the outset.
Do you remember when you found out?
I think I found out I think it was about, well, I think he had it for 5.5 years before he died. So I found out 5.5 years before December 2022. I remember where I was. My brother-in-law had just sold his advertising agency, and he'd taken the whole family to Positano to stay in this absolutely amazing, villa. And it was this amazing holiday. And then I found that out, and
Did
it
you
was
get a
quite.
call about it, or?
No. Well, the problem was that we'd always lived in each other's pockets up north until I got married, and then I got married. I had a really, really busy job. We lost contact for about 10 years, I'd say, in our 30s. Wow. So I guess we were really good friends from 12 to 30. And then for about 10 years, we lost contact. So I found out on Facebook. Well, I sort of saw something on Facebook, which was a charity concert type thing. Yeah. He used to be in a band. I was the biggest groupie. Yeah. And they were doing this fundraiser. And when I looked into what the fundraiser was for, I was like, hold on a minute. And then I contacted him, and yeah, he told me.
I see. How did you feel then when he told you?
I felt really sad because we'd lost so much time. And I guess that there's no way that we would have lost that time if we'd have known what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I felt really guilty. I felt like I'd moved away. I'd gone to London. I'd become this media. He used to call me the media mogul. And I felt like I'd sold out a bit. And I felt that I'd sort of forgotten what's really important in life. So I made up for it straight away. Obviously, I didn't fly back from the holiday, but as soon as we got home, I went up north. I took my kids. They met him. They absolutely loved him. He taught them the dreadful phrase of "I'm going to turn my bike around" when he was going to the toilet, which they said every time they went to the toilet. I just made up for it. I went home a lot. I spent a lot of time with him. We laughed and joked and, filled in all the blanks. And it was like, we hadn't lost those years. I think when you're really, really good friends with people, it doesn't, that time doesn't matter how long it is or. Yeah. But yes, we spent a lot of more time together, and he did have a long time. So he was on a trial drug, and we knew that there was another one as soon as that one stopped working. And then he was like this sort of medical marvel that, he was one in, I don't know how many 100,000 people that it would actually work for. And so it was shrinking the tumours and meant that he, like I say, lived for another 5.5 years, wow. which was amazing.
For someone who may, you wouldn't want to wish it on anybody, who may go through something similar or be going through something similar, where they're visiting a friend or a family member who's going through something like this. How did you approach, going to visit him in hospital and how did you kind of deal with it?
He wasn't in hospital until like right at the end. Okay. He went into a hospice, so he was always at home. I guess it goes back to the beginnings of time for me, doesn't it? In the fact that I can lean into those sorts of things. I don't know why and how I can sort of absorb that pain, but I want to take that pain away from other people. And obviously you're not going to be able to take very much of it away, but whatever I could, I really lent into it. So I would go there, and I can talk incessantly about anything. So visits would just be filled with conversation and not how do you feel, and those sorts of things that really people can't tell you in that situation. That he's not going to say that, but he's going to laugh at the ridiculous things that we got up to when we were younger, or me asking questions about things that I can't remember, or we'd go and play mini golf with the kids, and he was dreadful and they thought it was hilarious. We watched Top Gun, we do all sorts of things together, and just kind of reminisce and laugh about life and not be maudlin, I guess, about it. But again, not everybody can do that. Not that's not the right situation for everybody. We just had a friendship that was based on laughter, and so we kept it up. When he got chronic wind, we laughed about it. I tried to buy him a diffuser, but it didn't make any difference. And then when he did go into the hospice, he then, that was really difficult for him because he didn't want to die, no matter how difficult it had become. And what I tried to do was work out how I could keep in contact with him every day, without sending a text going, "How are you doing?" Because clearly that's not going to work. And I found a tape, a mix tape that he'd made me when I was younger.
Okay.
His attention to detail is difficult. He didn't even stick the, is that Wallace or Gromit?
I don't know, it's one of them.
But it's a tape deck, and he had made me this mixtape, and he hasn't written what any of the songs are on it. So I had no idea. I couldn't remember what was on it. I knew that there were certain songs that I really, really loved, but he was massively, massively into music. So I bought a Walkman on Amazon. We can still get them.
Oh, cool.
And you can't actually listen to it like that. You have to get a USB stick and put it in and all sorts of things. But anyway, I figured out how to do it. And every day I sent him one of the songs. So I didn't tell him what was on the whole thing. I sent him a song a day, and there were about 14 songs on here. So it got us through 2 weeks of conversation back and forth of what was on there. And I sent him lyrics from the songs. And it was quite interesting because he gave it to me when I was going away to the States. And clearly a lot of them resonated because he was going away. And there were songs like... if you need a friend, I'll always be there, and I'll hold your hand even when it gets tough, and stuff like that. So it was very cathartic for me, but it was a really lovely way to keep in touch and to have something to talk about. And he was lovely enough to let me come to the hospice and spend time with him there. And I was there, I think, the day before or 2 days before he died, and we were still laughing. We were laughing about all sorts of things. And, I think that if my advice would be, if you can, try and lean in and make somebody else's time on earth as pleasant as possible and full of laughter and smiles. Yeah.
And then what was it like on the day that you found out the news?
I think I knew because I hadn't had a response from my text the day before. So I guess I knew that there was something up. And then his girlfriend sent me a text. I sent her a text saying, "I haven't heard anything, blah, blah, blah." And she was like, "Oh gosh, yes, sorry, he's gone." even if someone's in end of life care, that they that it is going to be the end, but you can't really accept it. And I think I still haven't really accepted it. But I went to his funeral, obviously, and at his funeral, I bumped into the three boys that were part of our group. I hadn't seen them since I was, one of them I'd seen a lot, but the other two I hadn't seen since I was, I think, 16, 17. And we had the most amazing day of celebrating his life. And the band played at his funeral. And the lead singer of the band said to me, I remember Chris saying to me when he was 16, "You've got to meet my best friend. She's the most amazing girl." And I said to him, so Liam said, I said to Chris, "Your best friend's a girl? Like, what the hell?" And he said, "And then I met you and I understood." And it was the nicest thing that anyone could say in that situation, where you sort of feel very validated, because how you felt about somebody is how they felt about you. And life's difficult sometimes, and like I say, you lead into those situations, and you do what you can to make somebody else feel as positive and as safe and as loved as you possibly can, because they've got the far worse side of the deal.
And from there, how did you move forwards in his, in his remembrance, but also in your life from that point of losing someone who was so close and so dear to you?
I used to walk my dog at the top of a hill in Richmond Park for about 6 months. I would walk every Saturday morning to the same spot, and I believed that I could talk to him there. And I think anyone that saw me walking around talking out loud to him would have thought that I was a little bit strange. But I felt that there was this, I could give him up over a period of time. And I chatted to him up there. I did once say to him, "If you're up there, show me that you're up there." And then there was a massive gust of wind, and I was like, "That's him." I talked to him. I still listen to my tape, and the three boys and I meet up and reminisce. And the three of them, I'm going to be 50 this year. The three of them are coming to my 50th birthday, and I feel that Chris has gifted me Jerome, Kieran and Paul, and somehow together we can keep that sort of memory alive. My son has a friend, a girlfriend who's not his girlfriend. He's got a girlfriend as well, but he's got a friend that's a girl. And I said to him, "Is she your Chris?" And he said yes. And I was like, so the world turns and carries on.
That's really special.
Well, advice. What would be your advice for others grieving?
One thing I did was go to this retreat. It was amazing, actually. It's called the Body Camp, and it was in Mallorca. And I went for a week in the June. So I also got. I got the job in August. So it was a big year for me. A lot of things were changing. There were changes at work. Chris had died. We'd launched Paramount Plus 6 months earlier. My son had just done his GCSEs. There were all sorts of big moments in life. And I didn't necessarily go to this body camp to grieve, but part of it was this thing where we all had to. I went by myself. I've never been on holiday by myself, so it was quite the moment. And we got up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do ice baths and run up mountains and cycle and all sorts of things, which you think would be counterintuitive. If you're exhausted, why would you go and do that? But it was actually completely invigorating and an amazing cathartic experience. So half of it is about, pushing your body to the limits and showing yourself what you're capable of. And the other part of it was a really sort of spiritual kind of coming together and talking about, the things that are going to help you and guide you in life. And one of the sort of exercises we did was write on a stone something that we wanted to get rid of. And I didn't know that that's what we were going to do, and people were writing all sorts of things down. And I realised at that point, 6 months later, that what I wanted to get rid of was my grief, not my memories of him, not anything else, but I wanted to get rid of the grief that I was feeling. So I wrote "Grief for Chris" on this stone, and we didn't know what we had to do. We all went on this sort of hike. And then we got to this place and you had to throw your rock off and you had to explain why you were throwing that rock off. And then you walked with whoever you were standing next to back down the mountain and discussed the thing that you'd thrown away and the thing that he'd thrown away. And I was walking down a mountain with a 24-year-old lovely guy. Your lives are completely different and you're telling somebody who doesn't know you can tell the whole thing for the first time. A hugely cathartic experience, and he told me his, and it was amazing. And I feel like that day I did throw my grief away. I still cry in the car when I hear one of the songs. I still cry when I miss him, but I guess I cry happy tears because I was so enormously privileged to have that friendship and to see the world through different eyes and to live the life that we lived as friends.
But I'm sure he'd be very proud of what you're doing now. And
I mean, he I guess he doesn't know, maybe he does know, he doesn't know that I'm head of Paramount Plus, but he knew that that I was working on Paramount Plus and that I was launching it, and he was really proud of me, but he kept me very grounded.
The media mogul.
Exactly.
Are you a religious or spiritual person?
Why? Because I'm called priest. No, I'm married into the priests.
Just because what you mentioned, you're going on this trip, yeah.
I believe in something. I don't know what it is. I don't think that there's any cut and dried sort of explanation of how we all are. So I think that I believe what I want to believe, which is that there is a heaven and that Chris is there with my gran and my grandpa and all the other people that I've lost, and that I will see him and them again because why not? It serves me well. But could I have a debate with an atheist and win? Probably not.
Don't worry, we don't have one lined up. And here we go. Let's start the debates. Who knows, really? Okay, so you've mentioned it there. Paramount Plus comes into the story here. You spent your time taking a breath, and then I guess what happens? Do you sort of go, "I've had enough breaths now. I'm ready. It's a bit more of
My
a workout."
lungs are full.
Yeah.
No, I missed being on the hook of the success of a company. I really missed it. My son was in a school that he was happy about. My mum was on the road to recovery, and I didn't want to be a consultant anymore. So I started to look for a job, and I knew that. I actually had a moment where I was kind of like, should I leave media? Should I do something completely different? I felt like I was halfway through my career and now might be the time to completely take a different turn. So I did explore sort of different things, but...
What different sectors and industries?
So adjacent sectors, not like completely different. I mean, if I was honest at the time, what I really wanted to do was go and be marketing director for Selfridges or something like that.
Okay,
but that is a huge pivot, which and when I talked to recruitment consultants, they were kind of like, I mean, you could, but you're going to have to find brands that want to engage through entertainment. You've got to have some kind of connection. You can't just, and if you want to go and work for Selfridges or Marks and Spencers or something like that, you just don't have the years of retail knowledge. So they were saying it's not completely out of the realms of possibility, but you would be better off looking at adjacent companies, so sports, for instance, or, so I was interested in potentially going to work for Wimbledon, or because I love tennis, or the rugby union actually approached me, and I was kind of like, I really don't know how the game works. And and I'm not interested enough. And they were saying, but that's perfect, because actually, again, it's that sort of what we want. We all know rugby in spades. We don't want you to be like, oh my God, it's some amazing rugby star. I'd be like, who?
What was the role?
I think it was a CMO or a marketing director or something like that. And I was going through the process, but it just didn't feel right for me. I just sort of, I need to feel passionately about what I do. Yeah. And not everybody needs to do that, because there's plenty of chief marketing officers for things that aren't passion brands. But I think I would have felt a bit of a fraud. And I think I have one of those brains that if I'm not interested, it doesn't go in. It just flits back out again. So it wasn't for me, and I wouldn't have felt happy about sort of not understanding it in the detail that I did. Wimbledon would have been something else, but I don't know. I think that I'm so used to working in such a fast-paced, energetic, young industry that I think I might have, even though the commute would have been amazing, I don't think that would have been right for me either. So I was at a bit of a crossroads. There was a job back at the BBC, actually, that I really, really wanted, that I started to go for. And I actually got a coach to help me go through the interview process, which was amazing. And I would recommend that to anybody and everybody. It was a really good process to go through to get back on to the horse. I didn't get the job. I was number 2, and I was absolutely devastated. It was just before COVID, actually. So I thought life couldn't get much worse, and then it did.
What was the role? Do you know?
It was marketing director for the BBC for public service. So it felt to me like my life was coming full circle, and like, this is it. Everything has led here. I left you to get commercial and international experience, and here I am back, a fully rounded individual. But that didn't work out for me, and I think it's really important to admit those sorts of things, because I think that people think that people in senior positions are just, driven, and they've gone for every role, and whichever role they go for, everybody wants them, and and it's not like that. And there are many sort of knocks along the way, and I didn't get that job, and then I went for a role which was only 6 months at Channel 5. It was Channel 5, MTV, Comedy Central, and Nickelodeon, and it was their chief marketing officer. And I thought, I'll go for it. I'll see what happens, and
so that's for Paramount.
Yeah. So we were called Viacom CBS at the time, and I just got on really well with the people that were interviewing me. So I was interviewed by Ben Frau and Sarah Rose, and I liked them, and I liked what they talked about the culture of the place. I was slightly kind of 6 months, do I really want to do this? But then I thought, I can get back on into a role like that. There was talk about a streaming service, but not sort of, they couldn't really talk to me about it. So I was kind of like, but I knew that they had launched Paramount Plus in the US. So I was kind of like, okay, well, maybe this could be interesting. And maybe 6 months will turn into something longer.
That's a special time as well, 6 months.
Yes, it is my special time. Yeah. Maybe I was just saying, I'll only do it for 6 months. And then
Did you write down what is Paramount?
Have I cancelled my gym membership?
I Googled CMO. Got the gym membership back. No, I've had many gym memberships since then. But when they offered me the job, they offered me full time. So it felt like a really amazing kind of feeling that they were saying, no, we want you so much that we're going to make it a permanent position. And so I was like, okay. And I felt very welcomed into Paramount. Paramount is a place that is like no other in terms of people. The people there are phenomenally amazing. They're both massively smart and commercially astute, but superbly nice, and work out how to support and challenge and help each other. So it's a place that culturally fits with me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I joined to be CMO. Within weeks of being in the building, I was asked, we're going to launch this thing. Like, can you do it?
Paramount Plus.
Yeah. And I was like, well, yes, but it's the faith that they put into people, because clearly they could have gone out and recruited somebody who had years and years and years of streaming experience. Yes, I'd done the sort of strategic thinking around Britbox as a consultant, but I hadn't run a streaming service. I hadn't I'd never launched something of that magnitude before. I'd launched channels and brands and all sorts of things, but I suddenly had this enormous marketing budget, no team, and just the aspirations of, we want to be up there as one of the biggest streaming services in the UK. So,
and what were they asking you to do? They weren't asking you to be the CMO of Paramount Plus. They were asking you to...
They were asking me to be the CMO of Paramount Plus and all the other brands that I was running at the same time.
I see.
So take and launch this thing, because it didn't exist.
Is this the role you're in now they were asking you to do?
No.
Okay.
So I was the chief marketing officer
Right.
to run the marketing launch of Paramount Plus, whilst also growing Channel 5 and MTV and
Right.
i5 and all the rest of it. So it was a hugely diverse and complicated role with lots of different stakeholders, huge aspirations, but why they gave it to me, I guess I just, when I work on a brand, I feel massively passionately about it. I loved that brand inside out and back to front, and I don't think that they would have found anybody that would have loved it more, and I still do. And I think that that's possibly why, I mean, we launched really, really well. We exceeded all of our expectations. We were way above target. And I think that that's why they started to look at, okay, how, because we were launching in lots and lots of different countries around the world. I'm only responsible for the UK and Ireland. But there are people like me in all of the different territories. And so after we'd launched Paramount Plus, they restructured to kind of figure out how can we have people like me in each of these territories to run the entire SVOD service. And I had already thrown my hat in the ring. I'd sort of said, I've launched Paramount Plus now. I absolutely love it. What's next for me? How can I, because I don't think that I can just maintain the marketing of Paramount Plus. It's been too big and too momentous and too amazing. I could do this, or I could do that, or, what are you thinking? And I would really recommend that people do that. Like, that they weren't thinking at that stage, I don't think, about how it was all going to look. But if you start to have the conversations with the right people about what could it look like for me? How could I grow further? And I think I got that. Sort of confidence to do that from the BBC, where they were always looking at how they grow and develop you. So I was thinking, well, surely you want to grow and develop me. What's next for me? And how can this work? They created these roles, not for me, but because it was right for the structure. And then I went through a proper interview process, which is right and proper, of course. And I thought that they were only going to do it internally. So I was thinking, well, who would be better placed? But they didn't. They went on a big old external search as well. So it was kind of a bit of like, oh my gosh, if I don't get it, I'm probably not going to want to stay, because I'll have my nose put out of joint so badly. But I'm very glad to say that I did get it. And I've been in the role now since August. And that sort of transition from CMO to kind of managing director or general manager is a big learning curve again. And
What's the difference?
Yeah.
And is this August 2023? That's when you started? Is
yes.
Yeah, last year.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, what's
So
the
not quite a year yet.
Almost a year. Well, yeah, what's the difference? You've previously just been in marketing roles up to CMO and now general manager.
Yeah, so there's a huge difference because you are, as a marketing person, you're spending the money.
Here's your money, go spend it. Happy days.
But I think for a streaming service, it is very important that you've got a marketing background so that you understand the data, you understand the audience, you understand the programming, you understand how to get the right audiences in. And, it's very important to have that marketing background. But of course, you could have somebody from a financial background, you could have somebody from a commercial background, you could have somebody from a content background. What you have to do when you're transitioning from one to the other is learn what you don't know and what you haven't spent your time thinking about, because you're quite blinkered as a marketing person. So understanding the full financial kind of, situation and context, how we make money from all sorts of different revenue streams, which ones are the most important to grow and develop, how we're distributed through our partners and which are the sort of big partners that you need to develop and grow and nurture. What is the content mix that works? How does the whole sort of orchestra work together? I sort of think of myself as being a conductor of an orchestra, but I don't play all the instruments. I used to be absolutely brilliant at one of them, and now it's like, oh my God, all of these people that now work for me are better at distribution or content or finance or whatever than I am. And so instead of trying to be better than them at it, how do you connect them together to make sure that we're sort of playing in tune and making the boat go faster and growing the revenue and making ourselves as profitable as possible?
So if I'm listening to this and I'm at the peak of whatever department I'm in, whether that's marketing or finance, and I'm looking at this general manager, managing director type role, or I'm preparing for it, and I want to learn from you how you made that transition. Like, okay, how do you go about learning all those things? What was your process?
I had to very sort of pointedly remove myself from a lot of the marketing conversations, because that's where you feel comfortable. That's where you know that you add value, but actually you're not needed in the same way, because you've got a team of people. We've all been through the launch together. They know what they're doing. Where you're much better placed is trying to pull the whole thing together. So you've got to feel okay with the discomfort, because there's a lot of meetings that you don't understand. There's a lot of context that you don't get. You're going to have to ask people who, don't necessarily have all the time in the world to spend with you to explain everything. And you don't want to sound like you don't know what you're talking about either. So I think it's sort of being curious, asking questions, joining the dots, working out the people who are going to help you and the people who possibly aren't, for whatever reason. And you will find those people in your organization, and they're not all at the top level. Where are the people that can help and school you in places that you don't understand? And who are the people that you understand? Because you might not understand them all. There are finance people that I still do not understand. But you have to explain to them that you need, for me, tell me in words. Don't show me loads and loads of Excel spreadsheets and models and all the rest of it. Explain to me in words what this actually means, and let me point to all of these boxes in this Excel spreadsheet and say, but why is that the way that it is? And I think you have to get really comfortable with asking those questions. And I have a really good relationship with our CFO, and say to her, I don't understand. That doesn't make sense. How is that average revenue per user not based on X, Y, and Z. And she's like, okay, because those costs are there and that works in there. And you're like, okay, fine, I get it now. But she's telling me in words. She's not expecting me to click in and look at this massive formula and figure out how to make sense of it. So I guess the biggest thing is be okay with discomfort, because you're going to feel uncomfortable for quite some time. Give yourself a break. There are very clever people that have given you this job. They're not doing you a favor. They know that you're going to be able to do the job. Ask all of the questions of all of the right people, and surround yourself with the people who are going to be able to make sense of it for you. And then what I think I do really well is pull those people together and help them see how to join the dots, and how, if distribution and marketing and content are working in concert together, we're actually going to deliver even more gain. What are the data points that people haven't seen that you can show them? So, a very early on made sure that I spent a lot of time with our data analyst guy, because he can see, and understanding how to use our portal. There are so many different key performance indicators for a streaming service. How many people are we bringing in on free trials? How many of those people are converting? And why are the people that aren't converting not converting? How long do they stay with us? How many people are we churning out? What sort of people? Which programs are making you come in and stay for longer?
Yellowstone.
How do you navigate people through all of those programs and on to the next one and keep them for longer? What's the magic number for how many months people need to be with you that they then just stay for eternity? And it's all of those things. And where is the headroom? Who are the partners? What is the content? And it's fascinating if you get under the bonnet and look at the data and then match it with years of experience, not only your own, but all of the people in your team.
So we're very interested in how great businesses are run, as we've said earlier actually about BBC, but in terms of Paramount Plus, and you shared a few things that you do that are really important to running a great company. One of those was the weekly business review. Can you break that down so others can learn from how you do that, how you do it?
So it's kind of
what is it?
A control room of what has happened last week. And we measure the same things every week. So everybody gets very happy with the numbers that you're seeing, and you can see the fluctuations in those numbers.
What do you measure?
So we're looking at free trials in, people who come direct in and pay, the conversion rate, the churn rate, the active rate. So active rate and churn are obviously go hand in hand, because you want the people that are on the service to be watching as much as possible, because otherwise they're going to be thinking about churning. And then your net adds, so people in minus people out, and how many additions you've had per week. And we forecast what we think that we're going to get based on the content that we've got. Programs coming to an end, programs launching, marketing investment, all sorts of things. And we're constantly tracking those with numerous people. And I am not hierarchical in any way. So we make sure that we've got the right people in the room who are pulling the levers for the right things. So, and we have open discussions about it. Everyone's allowed to have an opinion. No one's necessarily right. We need to then corroborate that with the data, and then we unify around what we're actually going to do about it, and move forward.
How do you create that environment where people do feel comfortable to share openly?
So I read a book called Radical Candor, and she talks about how you give kind, honest, direct feedback. But it's she talks about this kind of axis where you have to care personally and challenge directly. So if you only care personally, you're going to end up with what she calls ruinous empathy. So you just kind of, oh gosh, how awful and blah, 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 and you're not actually telling people directly about what you need them to do, or where you think that they could grow or develop or whatever. If you just challenge directly, then you're in the sort of obnoxious aggression category where you're barking orders at people and you're telling them that they're wrong and they feel hopeless. If you embrace what she calls radical candor, then you're being kind and considerate and walking a day in those people's shoes, being empathetic, but you are also challenging directly and giving people clear feedback about what you think that they could do differently, better, or, you know, positively, what you've done really, really well. So I've read the book. We've also at work now got a 50-minute sort of online course that you can do. I've got my whole SLT to do that and to sort of talk to their teams about it, because it comes from all angles. It's not just top down, it's bottom up as well. How do you make sure that you create the environment that other people can challenge you? And I ask people to challenge me. I deal with it well when they do, and therefore you create a situation where people know that they can question where something's right or wrong. And also when people make mistakes, there's no sort of calling them out on it. You know, it's really important that people know that they can throw ideas into the ring, that we will all then decide to do something because we feel it's the right thing to do. If it's not on them. There was a process where we all signed up to something. And I think it's really important to take risks. If you're a smaller brand trying to grow quickly in a hugely competitive world, you need to take some risks, and we will fail fast, but we'll learn along the way. And I would have thought that we will make bigger strides forward as a result if we just, tread water, sail through. We're not going to make the strides that we need to make.
That's some great feedback there. And another business point and tip you shared with us was around work stream to ensure forward momentum. You tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I always make sure that we've got at least 5 work streams on the go, hopefully to the delight of the team. But
what is a work stream?
Yeah, what is that?
So identifying an issue. So say it's reducing churn. Then working out who's going to be the project lead on that. So who's most likely to have the biggest levers to pull in that area. So for churn reduction, it would be our retention and lifecycle team. But who else needs to be on that work stream? So that group of people that can actually affect churn. So you'd have a content person, you'd have a data person, you'd have a marketing person. But there's a clear project lead who is defining what the objectives are of that work stream, what the timelines are for that work stream, what the obstacles are and the blockers, and what the deliverables are. And what we try to do is make sure that we've always got that forward momentum. So we've got, what will we have achieved by day 15? What will we have achieved by day 30? What will we have achieved by day 60? And we hold each other to account. So if there's 5 work streams going on at any one time, then we have work stream lead meetings where we talk about the progress that we've made on each of those work streams. And a lot of the time they overlap, because if you're trying to reduce churn, then you are also driving profitability. So those people are talking to each other constantly and getting clear understanding of how we're driving momentum in different areas. At day 60 we might have completely fixed an issue and that one moves away and we'll get another work stream on the go. But it's basically, how do you make sure that you're driving momentum all the time and that you're pulling together different disciplines to get their brains onto one particular issue? And you've got completely different people. The data guy is so different from the marketing woman. I've got introverts, I've got extroverts, I've got all sorts of people, and you pull them together, and that's where the magic happens. I don't have all the answers. I don't think that if you could clone 10 of me, we'd be in a better position. I'm trying to, get the goods out of the different people to mix it together into the perfect recipe to move us forward.
And who did you come in and say we're going to have 5 work streams? Where did that idea come from to choose 5?
5 seems like a doable number, right?
Yeah.
If you've got any more than that, it's probably far too many because no one's going to be able to hold them in their head long enough. I don't know. Maybe it's a. I have no idea.
Nice number.
Yes, it was me.
Yeah.
But I think it's what's manageable. What can we all keep in our head? And you have to prioritize. So we're all about what are the big ticket items that are going to actually push things forward, because you can spend your day, we could all work 24/7 doing all sorts of things, but what is actually going to move the needle? So the reason that we started with 5 was because there were 5 big hairy goals that we needed to work on. It's worked in terms of being able to keep 5 projects running at once. So that's the magic number.
What do you do when you're struggling to work out, or say you've got 6 things you're worried about and you've got to decide what's the 5th? How do you decide what's important and what's a big hairy thing and what is not?
In streaming, driving profitability is the most important thing. So if everything's laddering to that, it's very clear which of those projects is going to drive to faster profitability. And that's what we're about. So to me it's quite clear that if there are 6 things, I could quite easily work out which are the top 5.
In our pre-interview call before, you shared that you're only ever as happy as your least happy child. I've got 2 children as well, so I know that can be the truth. When they're unhappy, it can make everyone a bit unhappy, especially if you're in a stress situation. What are your tips in smooth and happy parenting from a parent who can be quite busy at times?
My kids are my absolute life. I think that I have always known that if push comes to shove, that's my everything. So they're number one. They know that they're number one. They don't care if they ring me if I'm in a meeting or, just to ask me where something is. They very much feel 100% loved, nurtured, and that I'm available. But yes, you're right. It is tricky at times. I read this amazing quote that said, you'll always remember the sports day you missed, but never the meeting that you missed it for. And so I do try wherever possible to prioritize the important things, the really important things. I mean, I've been known to run down a dual carriageway with my shoes in my hand, trying to get back for parents' evening for my daughter who was 5, and for them to just say to me, "Oh, she's really lovely," and you're like, "Oh my God." But it's getting the balance right, and there are moments when your kids need you and only you. And there are ways that I think that I understand my children and can help them. So my son was struggling with his GCSEs and had decided that he wasn't smart enough, and that's really, really not the case. But he was struggling with the confines of school and the way things are taught, and having to just sit there and listen and write things down, and that's not how he learned. And my mum was always saying to me, he's the kinesthetic learner, he learns differently. And so his future is so much more important than me becoming higher in my career, and as I've already shown, I can tread water for a while anyway. So, so to make sure that he has the right start in life was massively important to me. So when we were launching Paramount Plus, actually, it was his GCSEs. And, he was struggling with the fact that there's 9 subjects. Like, he doesn't know how to do the sciences. He's not good at math, which is not true, but that's how he felt about himself. And so I think that as a parent, it's so important that you are instilling confidence in them, that you're helping them in any which way you can. So we went on a revision holiday. I read all of his texts in English. So I read Jekyll and Hyde, and I rang his English teacher and I was like, I don't understand why it's a classic. It's rubbish. I don't understand it. And she spent an hour with me. I'd just come out of a meeting and I was sitting in the Google foyer talking to his English teacher, who was explaining to me why Jekyll and Hyde is a classic and what the whole root of the whole show. Listen to me talking about TV. The root of the whole book is about. And I read Macbeth. We watched it on telly, like 2 different films. I made him listen to the audio book. We watched loads of people on YouTube discussing it. Okay. We talked about it and we learned his GCSE subjects together. And I think the big thing is not being a parent that sort of tells them that they should work harder or they should do this or they should do that. It's more about understanding who they are and how they learn and what they need from you. And what they need is to feel confident in themselves, and they need to feel loved and supported by you, and they need to feel heard. And, I really enjoyed learning chemistry and physics and biology again. I was terrible at school, and now I'm like, oh, that's how it all works. And we made it fun. And, we would learn for 2 hours and then go and play tennis and then do a bit more and then do something else. And he's taken his first A-level today and came back full of confidence. I'm not quite A-level standard, so he's on his own now.
A-levels just get kind of hard.
I was just about GCSE level. But yeah, he did his psychology A-level this morning, and I think he did really well. And and my daughter's, she's only 14, so she's not going through the trials and tribulations of exams yet, but life throws up all sorts of things for her too, and I want them to be happy, and I want them to know that I'm available, and I want them to know that no matter what happens in life, I've got her back, and I'll be there, and I am there. And COVID has helped that, right? Like 2 days a week I work from home, and I am around. International travel has kind of stopped, and so I'm hardly ever on a plane anywhere. They don't quite want me at Sports Day anymore, but there are things that I wouldn't miss for the world, and I have a very supportive company that will absolutely understand that there's certain times that you need to be at things, and they wouldn't want you not to be. And I would hate anybody in my team to think that they couldn't be at a sports day or at a school play or whatever, because all of those moments shape your kids, and they want to see a smiling face in the auditorium. But yeah, as they get older, their issues get more difficult to solve with a wipe of the knee and a plaster. So it is important to be around and to be available.
For sure.
Great parenting advice there. Great career advice, great business advice. We've covered so many things. So thank you for sharing the story of how you became Senior Vice President and Head of Paramount Plus in the UK and Ireland.
Absolute pleasure, and thank you for having me.
So any shows coming up on Paramount Plus that we have to or should be excited to watch?
So National Treasure Vicky McClure is about to be in a really gripping drama called Insomnia, which starts next week.
Okay.
So really, really great drama. There's a South Park special coming very soon, if you're a South Park fan. Yeah. They always bring the goods, Matt and Trey. So yes, I'm very excited about the new South Park. And then Yellowstone is coming back.
Is it?
Yes.
Great.
It's coming back soon. I don't think that we've released the date, but it is coming back soon, as well as Tulsa King, as well as Lioness. We have the most amazing catalogue of shows coming up.
So this would be season 6 of Yellowstone, would it?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. And is it Yellowstone or is it a spin-off?
Well, it's Yellowstone. It's Yellowstone, and there's a spin-off coming after that as well. And if you love all of the other spin-offs, then there's more to come for them as well. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was left desperate to find out what happens in 1923, and that too is coming back. So there are, you know,
I'm excited.
The embarrassment of riches that we have coming up is really strong. Frasier, new series.
Cool. New series.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, that's very cool. Genuinely, I've been banging on about Yellowstone since I watched it in 2022 or something. Really cool. Well, okay, there we go. Ash is going to share a final poem of your life that he's been writing as we go. Amazing.
It's a genius.
Don't know how he does it. And it's being tweaked now. But I'd say, in terms of a summary of lessons learned from your story, I think people can learn from that. You know, if you're ever in a position where you feel like you're not, am I ready for this role? Am I right for it? Do I have enough qualifications or experience in this thing? That's not really the question to ask. Is like, do you have the attitude to learn? Do you have that desire and passion for that new role? And can you communicate that in your interview to say, look, I don't know all these parts, but here's the stuff I am really good at, and those are the things I want to learn. And if you can help me to do that, I can do great at this.
Absolutely. And I think just being honest, but also taking stock of what you have actually achieved. I think we're always on the fly for the next thing. You know, when 2 days ago I was at Buckingham Palace celebrating the creative industries, you know, in a garden party. I've been so busy in the week running up to it, and I've been so busy since then, that I've hardly taken a minute to go, hold on a minute. You know, the person that her chemistry teacher said I'd end up selling newspapers outside John Menzies one day was at the garden party with the king and queen. And, you know, you have to sort of take a minute and say, I have achieved a lot and I have worked really, really hard. But it's paid off, and, you know, hard work pays off, honesty pays off, and making sure that, as well as building brands and growing companies, that you take the responsibility for building teams and caring about those teams. What I love, as much as seeing the numbers pouring in, the subscribers pouring in for Paramount Plus, is seeing that you've actually made a difference to somebody's career, that you've grown them, you've helped develop them in the way that I have been helped and supported and sponsored and mentored and coached all the way through my career. So important to me that I pass that forward. And when I left A+E Networks, I got a lot of people saying to me, you know, you've changed my career, you helped me so much. And I hope that will be my legacy at Paramount Plus as well.
Very cool. Okay. Here we are.
Yeah,
Poem time.
Poem time. And this is my overview of what you shared with us today. Turn your face to the joy in life and take time to feel what you feel. Past life lessons may show you what values to find to make your ideal relationships real. You can overcome big challenges if you're stretched and do well at it more than once. And you could grow into new spaces or move on after about 6 months. Different voices around the table is a balance that all organizations need. It's okay to tread water sometimes. You can be the exec of your own life and you can lead. So now you've heard the story of Anna, a progressive web of life and intricate patterns. There are many knocks along the way, so don't be dismayed and always follow your passion.
I love that. You're an absolute wizard.
Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.